Okay, welcome back. This is Mr. Hassan's Maths channel. I'm now going to answer question number 20 from the May-June 2019 Edexcel IGCSE Mathematics 2H paper. The question here is about an equation of the line y equals 9 minus x and a curve x squared minus 3xy plus 2y squared equals 0. These two intersect at 2 points. So this line and this curve intersect at 2 points, and we have to find the coordinates of these 2 points and show clear algebraic working. So here we have a straight line and here we have a curve. Now this curve is not a typical quadratic or cubic, it's a bit of a mixture here, because you got if you try to make y the subject, you'll end up with some reciprocal parts to it. So it's not a regular type of curve that we're used to. And one of the things that I always stress when I am teaching students about solving equations simultaneously is to avoid using the expression let's equate the two equations, because sometimes, like in this case, some people will do things which make no sense. So for example, if you had an equation like y equals 9 minus x and y equals x squared plus 3x minus 2 or something like this, then these two equations, they're both in terms of y, so you can kind of think of it as equating them, because 9 minus x equals y, x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals y, so you can say that, you know, basically 9 minus x equals x squared plus 3x minus 2. But the real reason that we can do that in that case, which is not our question, is that because it's like we're replacing this y with 9 minus x. It's actually what we're doing is we are really substituting instead of the y in one equation what y is equal to in the other. And if we think about the process in that way, then we won't do silly things like, for example, some people might say equate the equations, and they'll say x squared minus 3xy plus 2y squared equals 9 minus x, and that won't help us at all. And that's not even correct to say this, because y is not equal to this. This is not what y is. Okay, so we cannot do that at all. All right, so what we have to do here is we have to use substitution. Okay, so what we could do is we can say, okay, we have y equals 9 minus x, and we have x squared minus 3xy plus 2y squared equals 0. What we could do here is we could take the y's, which are here and here, and replace them with 9 minus x. So this 9 minus x will take the place of this y, and the 9 minus x will take the place of that y. So we're replacing or substituting, you know, what y equals in one equation into the other equation. All right, we could also do it the other way around. We could say x equals 9 minus y and replace the x with 9 minus y. That doesn't really help us, because in either case, in both cases we have to substitute, you know, in two places, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. So if we just take what y is equal to and substitute it into the second equation, then that will help us. We have x squared minus 3x times what y is, which is 9 minus x, and plus 2 times y squared, so 9 minus x squared equals 0. So now we have an equation. We have eliminated the y from the equation, and we now have an equation in x only, and we can solve this equation, find the value or values. There will be two values of x, and then use you know, what we have up there to find the y values of x. So what we can do now is expand. So you have x squared minus, now minus 3x times 9 is negative 27x, and minus 3x times minus x is positive 3x squared. You've got to be very careful not to make a mistake. Yes, you've got to be careful, you know, got to be very you know, cautious when you're doing this. So now we're going to multiply 2 with this bracket, but we have to square the bracket first because of our understanding of order of operations. You know, we have to raise, the index comes before the multiplication, BIDMAS or PEMDAS. Exponent comes before multiplication. So we got to leave the 2 as it is and expand this bracket. We can use the pattern of expanding, but don't make the mistake of saying 9 minus x all squared is just square this and square that, 81 plus x squared or 81 minus x squared. No, there's going to be a middle term. You can either expand it by writing out as 2 brackets and then multiplying each term, but you should really have the idea of how to use the pattern for expanding square brackets, which is basically you square the first term, so 9 squared is 81. We multiply the 2 terms together and double the answer, so 9 times the minus x is minus 9x doubled, which is minus 18x. So I'll just write it's going to be minus 18x, and then we square the last term, that gives you plus x squared equals 0. So square this number, multiply them together and double the answer, and then square the last term. Always remember, when you square a negative number, it becomes positive. Okay, so now we've got our we've got to now multiply this by 2. There's nothing here that simplifies in this section here, so x squared minus 27, in fact it does, sorry, we have x squared plus 3x squared. We can simplify that first. So you get 4x squared minus 27x. Now we can expand this, plus 162 minus 36x and plus 2x squared equals 0. Now we can combine the like terms. So 4x squared plus 2x squared is 6x squared, minus 27x and minus 36x is going to be how much? You got 27 and 36, they both have the same sign, so we're going to add them. That's 13, that's going to be 63, so that's going to be minus 63x, and then we got plus 162, that's the only constant term, equals 0. Now let's try to simplify this. I can see 3 goes into 63, because if you add the digits, they are multiple of 3. 9 is a multiple of 3, and here 1 plus 6, 7 plus 2, 9. This is also a multiple of 3. Okay, so 3 will go into each of these terms. So if you divide everything by 3, 6x squared divided by 3 is 2x squared. 63 divided by 3 is 21, so 21x. And 162 divided by 3 goes into 16. 5 times, remember, so it's going to be 54, so you have plus 54 equals 0. So there's no common factors. We can now try to factorize this. Right? Now, if you're in an exam and you're short of time, you could use your calculator function to try to help you. But I'm going to go through it as if, we're not going to use a calculator, just the normal way. And I'll show you the hack way to do it if you are in the exam and, you have to show steps of factorizing. You can't just write down the answer. So I'll show you a little hack in case you're short of time. If you're taking the IGCSE paper 1 in a question like this, then you don't have the calculator, so you have no choice but to do this. Now I'm going to use my little window method to do this. It's the same as splitting the middle term. So basically, I'm going to write the squared term, the x squared term on the top left, and the constant term, which is plus 54, on the bottom right. I know that these two numbers multiply to give me the same as those two numbers. So the product of these two numbers must be 2 times 54, which is 108x squared. That's the product of these two numbers, 108x squared. And the sum of these two numbers must be the same as the middle term, which is negative 21x. So I need to find two numbers that multiply to give me 108. And when I add them, I get minus 21. They both have to be negative numbers. Okay, they have to be negative numbers because they multiply to give you positive, so have the same sign, and they add to give you negative. So let's think of all the ways of getting 108. So we have 108 times 1, of course that doesn't work. We have 54 times 2, that doesn't work. Let's try 3. 3 goes into 10 3 times, remainder 1. Okay, that's 39 times 3. Again, we need a sum of 21, that doesn't work. Does 4 work? I don't think 4 works. 5, 6, 7, 12. 12 times, we want a sum of 21. Let's have a look. Let me just look for our product. So 108 divided by 12, 9 and 12, that's 21. So it's 9 and 12. 9 times 12, they give you 108, and the sum is 21. So it's negative 9x and negative 12x are the two terms. If you were doing this the other way, you split the middle term, 2x squared minus 12x minus 9x plus 54. I like to use this method here. So now I'm going to basically take out the common factor from these two terms. It's going to be 2x. Once I've taken out the common factor from one of the rows, then I can then multiply. I use multiplication, so I know 2x times something gives me 2x squared. Well, there must be an x there. 2x times something gives me negative 6, so that must be a minus 6 there. Sorry, 2x times something gives me negative 12, that must be a negative 6 there. And x times something gives me negative 9, so that must be negative 9x, that must be a negative 9. X times negative 9 is negative 9x. So basically you take out a common factor from one of the rows, and then you use that to kind of like, you know, the area of this rectangle is going to be given by this times that, so that must be x. The area of this is minus 12x, that must be minus 6. The area of this is minus 9x, that must be minus 9. So we end up with the factors x minus 6 times 2x minus 9 equals 0. So either we have x equals 6 or we have x equals 9 over 2. So those are the two x values for the coordinates. Now we know from the equation in the beginning that y equals 9 minus x, so they will intersect, okay, at the points. We can find the y values easily. Y equals 9 minus x, so when x equals 6, it's easier of course to use this equation than to use the other equation. That will give us the same values for y if we replace the x values, but this is, of course, looks way more complicated. So it's much easier to use this. So when x equals 6, y equals 9 minus 6, which is 3. So that's one coordinate, 6 and 3. And when y equals 9 over 2, sorry, when x equals 9 over 2, when x equals 9 over 2, y equals 9 minus 9 over 2, which is like 18 over 2 minus 9 over 2, which is 9 over 2. So it's 9 over 2, which is 4.5 and 4.5. Okay, so we have now 6, 3 and 4.5 and 4.5. Okay, and if we want to, we can make sure that our answers are correct by substituting them back into this equation. So we can, for example, replace the x with 6 and the y with 3. Okay, so we can say 6 squared minus 3 times 6 times 3 plus 2 times 6 squared. No, 2 times 3 squared, sorry. Right, because y is 3. Yeah, x was 6 and y is 3, that's right. So x squared 6, 3 times 6 times 3, yes, and that should give us our answer of 0. That should equal 0, and it does. So we know that that's correct, and we can do the same thing with the other answers, which is 4.5. So we're going to replace the y with 4.5. Okay, that's 4.5 squared, and we're going to replace these with 4.5. X and y both 4.5 in this case. So this is going to also be 4.5. And the 6 over there will also be 4.5. We press equals, again it gives us 0, so we know that those two values satisfy both equations. Okay, 9 minus 6, okay, is equal to 3, and 9 minus 4.5 is equal to 4.5, and they satisfied both equations. So you can make sure at the end, if you want, that your answers are correct by doing that. So there we have the answer to this question. Okay, you can factorize this, by the way, in the traditional way. Everything's the same in terms of finding these two. Okay, now the normal way that most of you probably have learned, 2x squared minus 21x plus 54 equals 0. So most of you would have learned the same thing. To find those two terms, you're going to write 2x squared minus 12x minus 9x plus 54 equals 0. And then you factorize by grouping. So you take out 2x as common in here, so you have x minus 6, and take out negative 9 as common, so you're left with x, and minus times minus is plus, and again 6 equals 0, so you're left with x minus 6, which is a common factor in these two main terms. And x minus 6 times something gives you this, that's 2x. X minus 6 times something gives you that, so it's minus 9. So we're left with x equals 6 and x equals 9 over 2, which is 4.5. So that's another way of factorizing, where you split up the middle term. Okay, so this, what I did there is basically the same kind of thing, just a visual way. Now, supposing you were out of time and you, like, you know, running short of time, and you weren't sure how to deal with the or you weren't sure how to split it up, and you didn't have time to think too much, then I'm going to show you a little hack. All right, so 2x squared minus 21x. But this doesn't work for you, of course, if you are doing the non-calculator exam, like if you're doing the new IGCSE non-calculator exam or the UK Edexcel exam. You won't have a calculator if you are in the non-calculator paper. So this doesn't work for you. But for those of you who do have the calculator exam, you could use your calculator function. So you go menu and go to the place where it has the equation, which is this one, press equals, go to polynomial, which is 2, and you want a degree 2, which is a quadratic that we've ended up with here. Put the coefficient of x squared, so that's what you press first. 2, press equals, the coefficient of x, don't forget the sign, minus 21, press equals, and then press 54, and then press equals, and then it will give you, when you press equals again, one of the solutions. So it says x equals 6, which is one of the ones we found. But if you want to kind of trick the examiner to make him think that you have actually factorized, you can write your x equals 6 after a bit of space. Don't put it straight away. And you press equals again, it will give you the other solution, which is 9 over 2, like we found. Okay, so that's how your calculator will give you the answers. But you want to show the examiner you actually solved it. So before this would have been x minus 6 equals 0. And before this, now don't write x minus 9 over 2 equals 0, because then the examiner will know what you've done. All right, because that's not how you normally proceed. What you have to think about, before this it would have been 2x equals 9, because you would have divided by 2 to get your final answer. And before that it would have been 2x minus 9 equals 0. And then before this would have been x minus 6 times 2x minus 9 equals 0. So it looks like you have factorized by using guess and check. All right, that's what it looks like. You've two numbers multiplied to give you 2x squared, 2x and x. Two numbers multiplied to give you plus 54, minus 6 and minus 9. It's like you've done it by just guessing and checking, and that's perfectly fine. If your answers are in this sequence and you don't write something silly like x minus 9 over 2 equals 0, then if you write that, then they'll know what you've done. They know you've just gone to your calculator, got the answers. But if you have something like this, write it as 2x equals 9, before that 2x minus 9 equals 0, and that's fine. So that's how you can use your calculator and get the marks and make it look like you factorize if you're short of time. Of course, it's always best for you to be able to factorize. So there we have the answer to this question. Other questions from this particular paper can be found in the playlist that will appear in this section over here. Other questions from this topic from my Edexcel collection can be found. This topic, we'll call it simultaneous equations, right? Non-linear simultaneous equations. I'll save it under that playlist, non-linear simultaneous equations. You'll find that over here. A question similar to this from the IGCSE syllabus of Cambridge, you can find in the playlist over here, and you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on this link. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.